Welcome to Talk Design Podcast, the space where creativity meets conversation. I'm Adrian Ramsey, your host, and as someone deeply entrenched in the world of design, I'm thrilled to introduce you to the minds that inspire me in the hope that they will spark something special within you too. From a design past crafting women's swimwear to pushing the boundaries of performance sportswear, from mountaineering to international yachting, to implementing systematic innovation solutions that transcend boundaries in the aerospace industry. My heart remains rooted in architecture, and exploring the emotional tapestry woven by built spaces is my fascination. My journey in design has been what can only be described as a life of design. I want to thank you for lending me your ears. I'm eager to embark on this next episode together. My guest on Talk Design today is Hugh Jefferson Randolph. Now, Hugh and I go way back. He is a Austin-based architect. He's one of the first architects I ever met in Austin, actually. And I did this, it was a few years ago. I met Hugh, made a phone call to him, I think, or I messaged him and said I'd be really keen to catch up with him and see what his studio was about, because I'd seen some photos of his work. And went and visited him in his studio. And I reckon that must have been 10 years ago, something like that. It was a long time.
Yeah, more or less. Yes, indeed. Pre-COVID.
So one of the things that I'd seen some of his work, because in Austin, there is an incredible homes tour. So the AIA Austin puts on this incredible homes tour. And Hugh had a house coming up on that tour. So I was very keen to see that as well. And from that, Hugh's been on that tour 15 times, so 15 different homes over his career as an architect. So he started his firm in about 93, I think it was, 1993.
Yeah, more or less. I was just finishing grad school and we didn't ever think, okay, well, we're opening the door and starting, on, March 1st of whatever particular year. Just so you have to kind of go back and reverse engineer and figure out, yes, 93 sounds like a good year. So
about then,
that's what it's going to be.
That's what it's going to be. Founded in 93. And of course, he had a home, like he jumps right in. Not only is he an amazing architect, but he jumps right in. He's involved. He's like passionate. And in 1995, he had his first home on the tour. And I'm going to let you tell, Hugh, I'm going to get you to tell everybody a little bit about, where your background was. And you've been on the podcast before, so there's some in there already, but tell that story again. And then we're going to take you through the different homes that Hugh has had on the tour, including he's got a home on the tour this year as well, which is going to be in the Austin series, where I sponsor that tour every year. So every year I sponsor with Talk Design the Austin Architects Homes Tour. So Hugh, tell us, how did you get into architecture? What happened? Sometime you were this little kid. How did you even know the word architecture existed?
Well, honestly, I'm not really sure when I knew that architecture existed. I could joke and say, well, Mike Brady on the American TV show, The Brady Bunch, which I don't know whether you all watched
we've
that.
all
But
seen
anyway, yeah. But no, I've always loved to imagine things and to kind of create worlds, environments, and so forth. I'm not a builder. Some people went into it, like they love to kind of construct things, and I would take like piles of brick and build pyramids and like little things, right? But no, I think that just seeing the world around me, and then I learned that that was a profession, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool because you can have, it sounds cliche, right? But the combination of sort of the pragmatic and then the poetic and the artistic aspect of it. I think I said in one of the earlier podcasts that I love art and music and anything creative, but art, like I would not ever work well of being an artist in a studio by themselves and waking up and getting to work. I could have all these thoughts, but really what I love about architecture is that there's that kind of team effort. There's the architect and other architects working on the team, because it's not just me designing and detailing every single one of these houses. but you have that ability to kind of interact with people, and you interact with them in a way that I think is pretty meaningful because
Mm.
most homes that don't get built don't have an architect. And when people do, they have their, they click the word dream home. I mean, they
Yeah.
have dreams about it, literally, and they have a lot of emotions, and you get to kind of interact with them in a way that I think is very meaningful, or hopefully it is. And all that. So I guess that's how I love what I do. And, I was like 7 or 8 years old. We lived in New Orleans at the time, and just seeing all the combination. They're building the Superdome, the Dome Stadium. And that's this big space age building, and then all the old buildings in New Orleans. And before that, we had lived in Houston, and I actually lived right next door to an Apollo astronaut and down the street from one of the Apollo 11 astronauts, first one to the moon. And
Yeah.
didn't really, they were just somebody's dad. I was like 5 or 6 years old, but maybe that combination of just that sort of optimism and creating something that doesn't exist. And, I won't take the whole podcast giving that intro, but really, and then studied architecture undergrad in New Orleans at Tulane University, and then worked for Washington, D.C. for 5 years. A really good firm, but it was not, we never did any houses.
All
Did
right.
some embassies and did some like private school buildings and some really, design focused larger work. And then I decided that I might want to go into academics or, get and just learn to keep on learning.
Mhm.
So I moved to Austin and was in grad school there. And at that point in grad school, people started coming to the school basically to find cheap labor, right? Someone who wanted just, oh, I've got this duplex and I need to add on a garage or some really basic stuff, nothing glamorous. And, here's a couple $100 or something. And at the time, you think when you're a student, even if you're, older, I was in my late 20s, mid to late 20s, it's like, it's work,
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
and I was
it's
very
paid
excited about
work.
having, yeah, and having real world work and so forth. And so those projects led to, and then I graduated, and then those things led to, these little projects led to something else. And then, you meet people and they want an addition to the house and so forth. So kind of shifting to when the first house we had on the home store was in 1995, is actually the first new house that I ever designed. And as a builder came to me, because, if you look at it, quite often, if a contractor is approached by, an architect. So the realtor who sold the land to this client, a young tech guy, wasn't yet married, and the realtor says, "Oh, I have a builder." And the builder needs an architect to draw me up a set of plans. And they didn't really have any expectations, but I was excited. Wow,
I
this is
bet.
a
Yeah.
cool project. And so I just kind of put my heart and soul in it and submitted it for the homes tour. And the homes tour, as you mentioned, it's every year. And it's probably like, my guess is like almost 40 years, 38
Yeah.
years. It's the late
Yeah.
80s when it started. So whatever year it was. And I kind of look at it and I think how much it's grown. People from all over the world coming. You've been
Hmm.
on many of them and so
Hmm.
forth. And so it's a wonderful opportunity. But this house, they were still painting inside the house at 1 in the morning, and the people were coming on the tour on Saturday morning at 10. So they wouldn't allow that. It's much more professionally run. It's more of a well-oiled machine and everything. But yes, so that's kind of my childhood, my education, and then moving on to that first house back in 1995. So
One of the
long
things
time ago.
I love about that is if you can imagine for the people listening, and if you go onto YouTube, we're about to share photos of all of these homes and tell a bit of history of them. One of the things that is incredible is you'll have thousands of people on the homes tour over a weekend, and these homes are beautiful homes, and they have thousands of people walking through them. So it's
Hmm.
such a testament to you, Hugh, as to who you are and what you leave your clients with, that you've managed to get that many homes on the tour, because not just are the homes good enough to get on the tour, because you get to present it, you don't get to select it. It gets
Right, right.
selected by the committee. But beyond that, you've got clients that will continually go, yeah, we'd be happy to have our home on the tour. And that's a testament to you. It's because that's a major disruption to their life that weekend.
It is. And
It's huge.
one of the homes we'll see was in 2020, and is, COVID year. So it's a virtual tour. And I remember thinking, wait, people are going to be paying like $25 and just looking at pictures of houses
Pictures.
online, and they sold a decent number of tickets. Not nearly as many, of course,
Hmm.
but we had our own house, my house, on the tour, and we're thinking like, whoa, well, people are going to see every room, and they're like the Matterport where you kind of move through
Yeah.
and everything else. And I felt it was a little invasive, and I'm thinking, whoa, here I am thinking that this is an invasion of my privacy just as an online tour, and realizing that, at that point, I don't know, there's maybe a dozen other houses we've had in the
Yeah.
past before that or whatever number, and thinking it's a great learning of empathy for my past clients to have that ability to put their house.
Yeah.
And some of it is just the privacy aspect. Some of it is like, well, what are people going to think? Like, are
Hmm.
they going to like my house? And
Hmm.
what I think that, of course, but if you're a homeowner, and so I just wanted to kind of thank all of the people who not only our projects, but everybody who has ever opened up their house. And there are some people who get very excited, even during the design of the construction. Oh, we'd like to have our house on the tour. They're very
Hmm.
excited because they want it and it excites them and they're comfortable with it. But other people, they're like, I don't know. We've had a few clients who we've asked, we'd love to have shown it with the public, but I can really respect when they say, we like the house, we love the house, but we're not going to have 3,000, 4,000 people walking through every room on 2 days, for 8 hours each day,
Yeah.
that, and it is, like I say, Adrian, thank you for pointing that out because it is a big
It's
gift
a,
that
yeah,
they give to the city.
they do. And, like going back to like Ingrid and what she's done with the tour over the years. So she's the director of the AIA Austin. She has really managed to, I think, grow the tour, obviously. But
Certainly.
beyond that, create such a body of trust with the people who have their homes on the tour. And then also this people not dragging, it invites people to Austin. It invites people into the space
Huh.
and they get to see beautiful world-class architecture in this town. And I don't think, I mean, I go on lots of architectural tours and take people on tours and stuff. I don't think there's another town that has such a concentrated area or zones of great architecture. And there are so many really good architects in Austin as well. Like there's, the bar is high. The bar is high to be a good
Yeah,
architect
no,
in
and it
Austin.
does. I go on. Yeah, and it's not only for the public, but obviously, well, architects are the public too, but
Hmm.
just seeing these other houses is incentive, like,
Yeah.
whoa, kind of keep up in your game. And I think that competition and also inspiration, not just to be better than
Yeah.
someone else, but when you
No,
see something, whoa, that's really special and it inspires you not to copy it, hopefully not. I mean, that would
no,
be
not to copy it,
kind of
but to
lame,
be inspired
but
by it.
but
Yeah.
but you see something and it inspires something else, and it also just kind of keeps up that level of design excellence. And
Yes.
in Austin, in fact, one of the things as we look at the pictures is how Austin has evolved, whether
Hmm.
it's the restaurant world, the architecture world, there's so many things economically,
Hmm.
it is such a fascinating snapshot for me looking back at these pictures and thinking, of what Austin was like, the skyline. I could go on and on, but it's really just a record in a way, kind of like this little, timestamp, over the last
Yeah.
30 years, from 1995 to 2025. So it's
Yeah.
something that is just great to see. And then when you have that open to the public, then they get to see a house. And if you're a architect and you have a client and they've seen other homes, they realize, whether it's a house you did or someone else, wow, they also want to raise the bar because they want to have a house as nice as someone else. Or when they see it in person, they know what your words mean.
Well, you
When you
can't.
start talking about, the quality of the space or the character, and they can nod and they can think, well, that's wonderful, but what does that really mean? And when they see those spaces and they see, the integration with the landscape or whatever
Mm,
the qualities
mm.
are of that home, it's much easier to convince somebody, a client, that this is what you can have. This is, how did you feel when you walked through that house?
I've
And so the tour is so amazing. So it's been wonderful to be part of it, for
yeah,
me.
one of the things I think one of the reasons that it's so great to visit the homes. And any architecture is architecture. You can see it. It's visual. That's fabulous, but you can't feel it. You can imagine
Hmm.
it, but you can't feel it. And when you
Oh
actually
yeah,
go into
how's
a
it,
space, yeah, a space changes when you feel it, when you're actually in there. And often when, like we're talking to clients, they're talking about their dream, and you're trying to encapsulate the feelings that that has into the architecture. You're trying to put those
Mhm.
feelings they're talking about in their dream, not just a wall
Right.
or whatever. Why is it like that? And I think that's a really great thing. And I love the way you do that with people, the way you actually go, okay, so this could mean this could mean this, and this could give that feeling. And they don't they are imagining it, but until they actually walk into it, often it feels better to them than they ever imagined when they get to
Yeah,
that
I hope so. I
experience.
think that you want to exceed expectations,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I do feel that, a client can ask for a certain set of goals, and we want to achieve all the things they ask for, but we actually want to kind of go above and beyond. Who
Yeah.
wouldn't, right? And to be able to convince them, and not so much that a house is larger or it's fancy or it's more expensive, but what's that sort of, you mentioned maybe the phrase, the je ne sais quoi, what is that sort of thing, which is hard, almost by definition, it's hard to articulate and use words for, but you know it, you feel it when you're in it, you know it when you feel it and all that. And I think that's something that we've always tried to do and
Mm.
find out how can each house be a reflection of that location, the site and the client. Most of these homes are, and we'll go through them, but were for families. There's one or two there was speculative projects that were then purchased during the construction, and the people who bought them, they were looking all over town, but then they found
Yeah,
something that
right.
really spoke to them because they wanted something special and unique. They didn't want to just take,
Hmm.
a standard cookie cutter home. And then they were able to kind of make it their own. But we
Yeah.
always wanted to be like like they say, the portrait of the people who live there. And what is that? What's their soul? What's their essence and everything?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That piece of their
so,
story, that chapter of their life. Yeah.
right, right.
Well, let's share some of these homes, Hugh. I'm going to go right here, and it's going to give me, and I'll blow this one up. So this is 1995, house one, and actually
Yes.
the first full house you ever designed.
So this was the very first house I ever designed, and so it was the first one on the tour. But no, it's a project that these pictures are just taken today. It's back in the day, like I didn't have a professional photographer to take pictures and everything. And I'm sure I have some old snapshots somewhere and I couldn't find them. So I thought I'm just going to go. And I had no clue. Like, I had a little bit of hesitancy, like, well, what's he going to look like now? Is he going to be kind of run down, or is it going to seem oh, it was a good start? But what the essence of this house was the one that the realtor found the builder, and the builder found me just to draw something up. But it was a very steep lot, and it was the last lot in this 1980s or 70s, 80s subdivision. So all the homes were already built except for this one
Oh, right.
location.
Yep.
And we'll see a picture from just a Google satellite image,
Yep.
you see. But rather than putting the house towards the street, we figured we're going to put it as far back on the property as we can because it has a nice view. And so we detached the garage, which is what you see right to the left of this frame is where the garage door is.
Okay.
And we had this porch. So the whole sequence having almost like this little hill country compound where you don't just put one large, massive house. The house was only 1,800 square feet. And that size is based upon the minimum size allowed by the deed restriction in that subdivision.
All
And it
right.
was just a young tech guy, not yet married, so he just had a tight budget. And we said, well, okay, we'll build a small house. And so we pushed it to the back of the property so it had a view, not to the
Hmm.
neighbor's house just to its right or left, but towards this real nice green belt. And you walk down the whole procession, is you walk to the right of the garage and then down that side porch and then down a few steps. We'll see. But really, it was to a large extent, it was the site. Like all of these projects, I hope in some way are really influenced by the particular, site specific
Always.
architecture.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, and so here's the view, when you're on that porch and you're kind of walking, you see
Hmm.
the houses descending and kind of inspired, like a lot of things back, the 90s in Texas, people were starting to kind of reappreciate the vernacular, the
Hmm.
very simple, using the limestone, the local materials, kind of as a way of balancing against a lot of the red brick, big McMansion-y kind of homes and so forth.
Right.
And there's different architects in town that well, even all different regions of the country were starting to kind of have that reappreciation for the simplicity, and so that's what we chose here. And
That's
then,
cool. Let me go to the next picture of it.
yeah, and
It
that's
look,
looking back. If you're near the front door, just to get a sense of the garage,
yep.
that's the door from the pedestrian door from the garage there. So again, just having a little bit of that, making it feel like it's in the hill country as opposed to being just surrounded or being very suburban. And so you have a
Hmm.
nice connection. Even, when you come in from the driveway or from the garage, you get a nice experience, walking through your front of your property. And I call it it's not even like our front yard because it's really much more native with all, a lot of a
Lots
lot of
of,
trees. So you feel like you're in a natural setting was the goal.
and having that larger front yard to do that. Like here, you can see the cars in the street, and this is looking back out through that first photo where you came through here
Yes.
beside the
Yeah,
garage.
so
Yeah.
there's the street. You can see, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
there's my car parked.
Yep. Yeah. And then you can see all that wooded lot all the way back. So this house is 30 years old.
It
Was,
is. Actually, it's probably a little, well, yeah, it is 30 years old because it finished the day of the tour.
yeah, right.
And the tour has always been in the fall. So yes, it is 30 years old.
So,
So, and I guess I was 30
yeah,
or
right.
31 when I was designing it. When I got the commission, I was probably like 31 or so. So that,
That's
yeah.
pretty crazy, isn't it? Was
Or I
it
could joke and
painted?
say I was 10 years old or 5 years old when I designed
You might
it.
get caught out on that.
Yeah.
Are the colors of the house still the same as it was when
They
you?
are, they've refreshed them and painted them, but we rather than having it just be the raw wood, we always
Mhm,
like to have a little bit of that kind of decorative colors is something that I really love. And I think that a lot of architects love
mhm,
white and gray and black and that
mhm.
kind of that joke. But I think that looking at different cultures and different colors and how they kind of work with regions, I think it's a very powerful way. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of it's difficult. I mean, when we pick colors for different clients over the years, sometimes interior designers do, but I really get an appreciation for it
Hmm.
can you can go down a rabbit hole of picking colors and the right color. But having said that, I'd much rather have a house that has a lot of personality, that's even maybe a bit of
Yeah.
quirky, and the color kind of grows on you as opposed to trying to kind of feel like it's following a trend. Because by the time if you follow a trend, by the time you build something, that trend is going to be gone.
Well, this is
That
a
fad.
really interesting thing, isn't it? Like, I mean, we could get way off topic here, but when people go, we want that, and it's a look, and it's a trend, and it's really heavy. By the time you've gone through a year of planning and a year of building, at least, chances
Hmm.
are that trend is on its way out of the marketplace. And
Exactly. So,
and the house looks very old in 10 years if you're
uh-huh.
doing it to a trend, as opposed to doing it to the property and doing it to its surrounds and doing it to the people that it belongs to. I think this fabulous house, like it's cool. I like the it's lovely to see a house that's 30 years old like this and go, oh yeah, right, that's and a simple house as well. But
Yeah.
nice stonework, nice siding and the almost sort of like the Cherokee red, but it's not brown post work and timber work throughout there. It's really cool. Really, really cool. If we go to this is the address, is it? Is that where that house
Yes.
is?
So if you look, the house is to the right of that pool. So there you go.
Yeah,
That's the house right there. And
yeah.
so what you can see is how much smaller it is, but also when you're inside the house, you're looking across the neighbor's property, which is downhill, so you don't really see their pool. But you're looking all the way
All the way
across and
down here.
down, and there's a big natural green belt, very large one, in fact. And so if the house were to have been, say, like right below those letters zero
Mm-hmm.
04, like up near
Mm-hmm.
the street, like all the other homes,
Would have
it would
looked
have just it
into
would have
the
been that. And then the backyard would have been just a nice sort of backyard, but we thought let's have the front space be very natural. It allows you to kind of walk through it. And then I guess most importantly, though, when you're in the house, you're looking at some big windows, you're looking into the
Yeah.
greenery again, rather than being the neighbor's house. So independent of the style of the house, it's that basic decision of where you locate it on the site that is really critical.
Yeah. Yeah. Siting your home is makes all the difference to how it will live, how you will
Yeah.
live in it. Yeah, it's incredible. This one here, this home,
Yeah. So
um,
this one
Murray Lane.
is, yeah, Murray Lane, and this is 2002. I can remember because our older son was a baby the year that was on the tour. And
So it's
so
a
this
very
house,
traditional house.
yeah, so this is a renovation,
Hmm.
and I couldn't find the pictures that show the side, but what we did is we added on, about maybe another 40%, of the space from the house. Like
Yep.
I forgot the square footage and everything else, but we added a second floor, but it's towards the back, so you don't see it, and kept the same kind of vernacular, the English Tudor.
Yep.
I believe this is 1927. And then in a small world story, years later, we did a ranch house for somebody, out, far west of, 2 hours west of town, not on the tour. And it turned out that in some kind of conversation, this client and I were driving out many times, together. We had like 2 hours to talk. And I'll say, oh, I did different projects. In fact, I did one years ago at Murray Lane. He goes, my wife and I, when we were married, our very first house was on Murray Lane.
No,
So he was not the client for this, but anyway, it's just that again, that anecdotal small world.
just that, isn't
Um,
it a small world?
yeah, so this is the only picture of this one, but again, it was just a project we're very proud of. And
Mm,
the many of our projects early on, like a lot of architects, were more renovations,
yeah,
additions, renovations, and we still do those, and we really like, and we'll see more and more of them. But this one was in an older Austin neighborhood, and the house, for example, to the left of it, they were going to renovate, but then they decided to kind of build a whole new house, tear down, and not with us. But I guess it gives an example of, back, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, the real estate values in Austin were such that people only wanted to do a small addition or renovation because tearing down a house, even if it was the best decision, ultimately, and it's not always, we don't ever approach a project thinking, let's tear down this house just
yeah,
to be wasteful. But a lot of times it does make sense. But the economics of Austin have changed so much that now it is, easy to decide, okay, well, if you have the money, build a nice new house and you're creating more value as opposed to building the biggest house in the block that's too expensive for the location.
right, right.
And so that's in one way, this is kind of indicative of that time frame of when people would just, renovate and they would never consider tearing.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's also a nice historic home.
I think there's something to be said for that as well. You know, that thing of it is wasteful to tear down a house that already exists. And the other thing that I've found over the years is, you know, when I first started designing houses, I think, you know, the clientele that I had, obviously when I'd say, you know, doing renovations, that was their economics. They could afford
Right.
a renovation, and then as over the years you keep working, you end up with clients that can afford a lot more than that as well, and then they become more particular about. Well, I don't want any of those older pieces of this house. You know, we love the site, we love the location, we love all that, but we actually want something that is about this next chapter is about us. This house doesn't suit our needs, and they're more likely to knock it down. And the more expensive the neighborhood, the more likelihood of it knocking down something that if it's got no historic value, because they just want
Mhm.
their own thing. They want their
Yeah.
own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want something that was somebody else's. They want that expression of themselves. So it's a really interesting kind of thing. And the economics of the marketplace always shifting. You know, building can be extraordinarily expensive at sometimes, and other times it becomes more reasonable, just depending on how all the economy is flowing. Um, this house here, Hugh, what's this one? Bridle Path. And there's been a few houses on the tour over the years in Bridle Path. Give
There have been. Yeah.
What year
Yeah. In
was
fact, we
this?
this was 2008. 2007 or no, 2006.
Okay.
2006. And it was either six or seven, but I think 2006. And this is actually designed initially as a spec project. And it's a
Hmm.
long, narrow lot, 50 foot wide, 250 feet deep. And it has an apartment complex, the back wall and balconies with old couches and stuff of an apartment complex to the left. And so what we chose to do is to look at more urban typologies where you have, say, like in a lot of the world, but I can think like in Paris or places where you walk past the front piece and you have a little courtyard in the middle. So when you look at this, the garage is in the front and the primary bedroom is upstairs. So you're taking these two rules and saying putting a garage in the front and putting the master bedroom upstairs above a garage, like those are two rules that you just never do those things. But our
Yep.
thought was putting that in the front allows you to kind of not have the driveway going all the way back and using up a lot of the property. And then it gives you that same, like that first house, it gives you that same procession, the kind of the
Yep.
choreography of entering. And so the front door is actually behind that front little pavilion. You walk through that gated area, and
Hmm.
then there's a courtyard in front of that large window where you see the kind of the light glowing in the first floor. And so
Yep.
that's where you enter. And then we also made it so that the very back again, you have this whole sequence of experiences with the back, kitchen, living room, but then it opens up to a backyard, which has this pavilion in the very far back. And so it's a matter of kind of you're really utilizing the entire length of the property, so
Yeah.
that it's not just that you have your house plopped in the middle. And again, we like compounds. We like kind of breaking pieces apart and creating small outdoor spaces in between them.
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
next image that you'll see is that the client, her name is actually Jana. And so we joked it's called the Jana Cabana. And this is one that again, this is almost 20 years ago, but it's one that we really liked having it be kind of like this folly in the backyard, a little bit more
Yep.
modern. It's not really quite the aesthetics of the front, but we like that eclectic. The same brick is used back there, but again, it gives us anchor being again utilizing the entire property rather than putting everything compounded right in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe, it's an interesting thing, like in Australia and New Zealand, I would say that probably something like 80% of homes are built with the garage at the front.
Yeah,
And that starts like most of the houses with our lot sizes and everything else, unless you're on acreage, they will end up being a garage either on the left or the right. And that could be determined by the services in the street, as well
hmm,
as then you'll have a garage, some sort of entry sequence, and then a room to the other side of that, which might be, could be anything. Quite often in homes, it'll be an office because people can be able to see what's happening in the street, etc., from that space.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
it's really interesting. Like and that's something that I notice in Austin and in lots of other towns, especially in America, where they were built with laneways at the back, and so a lot of times that would be your access. Otherwise, it's a long driveway down the side, and as you said, it steals a whole lot of space from the lot.
it
Um,
really, really does. And so I
yeah,
think that then the trick is to how do you make a nice looking garage
yeah,
and
yeah.
and so forth, and how do you have an inviting
Entryway,
uh,
entry
yeah, where
sequence.
you're
Yeah.
not kind of like, if you put your front door, there's a lot of ways you can do it, but I think that inherently there's many times where people say we don't want a garage in the front or that's
Mm-hmm.
bad design. And I think a lot of times it's simply that it hasn't been done well,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Mm-hmm. I
So
think that was a good example of it before that you showed.
yeah.
Yeah. So this
So
home
this
here,
house, yeah, so this is
what year?
on this was 2008.
Eight. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is on we call all the houses just by the name of the street, Matthews Drive. And this is one where, in fact, I almost forgot the story. This is a location where my wife and I first lived, where our first son, was when he was a baby. And so we decided we move to where we live now, which is
Mm-hmm.
a couple of projects after this one. And we were going to stay here, and we even had a design, never that far along, but we had a design for a new house, had an alley and is like a 2 or 3 story, kind of very compact, very urban house. And then we ended up moving to a larger house with with goats and a pig and this whole,
Yeah.
much different. But anyway, the so this house was one where a young builder had just moved to Austin. Matt Reisinger
Uh-huh.
was in town, and showing him around some of our projects. And my wife said, "Oh, did you show Matthew's Drive? Because we were trying to sell the house, because we decided
Yeah.
not to keep it as a rental. We had already moved, but we were, and I said, no, he's already doing one project because he started out here in town doing spec projects, right? And I thought he's already kind of busy, but then he was the one, since he was young and he wasn't in the same formulaic mindset that a lot of the developers had, in Austin. This is kind of a long, narrow lot. But I said, no, here's what you do. You've got an alley. You can have the garage underneath because there's a slope and so forth. And here's my general approach. And this is one where it was still very early on to do more modern houses,
Yep.
really. And I think that now they're ubiquitous all over the world, but this is one of the first ones that had all the glass and the kind of clean horizontal lines that you
Hmm.
see. And so ended up where it was a spec project and we were designing it. We didn't have a client, so we imagined these people in our heads.
Yeah.
And we thought, okay, maybe they're from California, maybe they're empty nesters. They like a little more sophistication in terms of they're not wanting a craftsman style, they're not wanting a Tuscan villa, and everything else. And so it sold before it was done to a couple whose daughter had just graduated from high school. They moved here from San Diego, so they're from California. He was with a law school, and he's now in Chicago at dean of one of the schools up there. But yes, professional, worldly, cultured, sort of very nice
Hmm.
people. And so it kind of fit like, whoa, if you design something that has an opinion, has a voice, it's not for everybody. And again, this is early on. A lot of the realtors and stuff's like, whoa, this is interesting. Then I
Yeah.
heard one time one was talking to another, and they said, oh, this is kind of like a commercial building or something,
Oh,
like all the
right.
glass,
Yeah.
and 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 they said it in a way that they weren't complimenting it,
Hmm.
complimentary to
Hmm.
it. But I think that over time, one of the things that I like about people moving here from other places, like, there's a lot of Californians moving to Austin, and some people are like, we don't need any more people from California. But wherever they're from, they bring their culture, they bring another point of
Uh-huh.
view.
Hmm.
And so I really like it when there are a mix of people from all over the world or all over the country because it keeps something vital and it kind of keeps things evolving. And for me, this house is one where if I were to kind of say, well, what's its what's its elevator pitch, right?
Yeah.
Its story is that it was one of the first modern homes, and we had a young developer builder who was able to be very open, and let us kind of influence him as opposed to being told what to draw. And so taking advantage of that, and again working with the site, as I'll keep
Yeah.
saying, for all of our projects.
Well, I mean, it's a beautiful success story for Matt as well, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
like for those of you who don't know Matt Rising, you'll find him on the podcast, but not only that, you'll find him with the Build Show. And he just recently came out to Australia on his first trip
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
here, and he spoke at a friend of mine's event. And, Matt's a powerhouse and a guy with a ton of knowledge and then also like a ton of learning experience, like he told some stories that just are frightening about the learning experiences he's had. But then he's a pioneer. He'll give it a go. Like he gives something a go,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
really done that. And to find somebody that you could do this with, and I mean, it's been good for both of you. It's been fabulous. It's a cool house. This is it inside.
Yeah. That's, looking into that entry space or the main kind of one of the living spaces, and the entry is to the right. So those
Yeah.
windows that you see are the ones that, from the outside. So again, it's this long, narrow home, kind of inspired by different like townhouses as well. And so use the word typology. The architectural type here isn't that suburban house with the door right in the middle and the windows on the left and the right, because it's a skinny house. And if you
Mm.
walked in on the short end, you'd have to be walking through all the spaces. And so again, putting that the entry and then all the different levels are based on the hillside,
Yeah.
and really working with the slope and whatnot. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's one that I still look at, and I think that when people say timeless, nothing is ever timeless, right? And I don't care if it looks
No.
like it's from a certain era, but I do look at this house and I kind of think that it is. one of the earlier homes, where people were using more kind of modern spaces for Austin. They might have
Hmm.
had it in California, New
Hmm.
York, different parts of the world. But again, having that kind of like the big, tall, clean lines, the warm materials, and so
Yeah.
forth. So yeah, so 2000 and I think 2009.
I'm like you, nothing's timeless. However, it stands the test of time. That's
Yeah, I'll need to
that's the
remember that.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does, doesn't it? Like it's just got beautiful simplicities to it and everything else as well. And that
Yeah.
was 2009. So we're
Yes.
talking, yeah, okay. So
And
about
this is
16 years old.
2000 and 2010.
Yeah.
And this is, we didn't share a picture of the front, but it's an addition to a home where the front is very colonial, white, clapboard siding and so forth. And again, in that kind of spirit of things being more modern, that kind of,
Hmm.
um, you know, early era of Austin, really neo-modern, because a lot of these, what you're looking at is sort of not that different from what like Los Angeles 1928 or 19,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. But again, having that kind of sense of big openness, a lot more glass than people might have been using, in the earlier generations in Austin. And
It's
yeah, so I think again the more clean modern aesthetic, and you
yeah.
can see that in here.
Yeah.
And so this one also, Matt Reisinger was also the builder, but this is for a family.
Hmm.
And Eric Rauser, who you may know,
Yeah.
had worked.
Sure. Yeah.
And so this is where he had first joined forces before he went on his own with Matt. And so I remember that he selected that pecan bar top, and the steel was something that he kind
Yeah,
of brought
right.
into the conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, well, he's a powerhouse in himself as well, isn't he? Like
Yes.
Eric, yeah. He's wow, what's this one, Hugh? What year's this?
Okay. Well,
This is
this one is
Greenleaf?
one that, again, yeah, this is on Greenlee. This is for a family. And it's interesting because this home wasn't on the tour until I think 2013.
Hmm.
But it was built in 2000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was built in sort of a triangular lot. And I lived in Washington, D.C. for a while before moving to Austin. And they have a lot of kind of triangular property, like in Paris, the
Hmm.
radial streets.
Yep.
And how do you have a building that looks good on the corner? And often enough, they had like curves, right? And so here I thought, well, let's have a round element. And again, that's the notion of rather than having one large mass, having it broken into different pieces. And over the years, different things have evolved. We've worked with different homeowners who since bought it from the original client, to renovate, to change it, and so forth. It's now white, more sort of a
Hmm.
Santa Barbara Spanish
Hmm.
colonial, rather than this color. But it's a product that well, I guess it's almost 10 years old when the third, the second owner, did a really nice job with the interiors. Mark Ashby is an interior designer here in town
Hmm.
and really kind of upgraded some things. And it was nice before, but again, in this particular case, a lot of homes that go in the home store, they're brand new. They've been finished like 6 months prior. The landscaping is still kind of getting in.
Yeah.
This one, we really like the fact that by the time that it was on the tour, it had really settled in. The interiors are really nice and layered and full. And also the landscape, really love how that, the ivy is on that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so this is, I guess, 2000 and 2013.
213. Okay.
Oh, and the other thing, I make the quick little story out of it
Go
is
back
that
to it.
on that, sorry,
Yeah.
is the weather vane on that top,
Uh-huh.
is a cow. And the client, his father was one of the early people who founded Wendy's hamburger chain in the United States.
Oh,
And so he
really?
felt like having a cow and the wife said, now you may hate this. I said, no, that's great. It has such character and it really worked there for at least, I like it.
Yeah.
And she was sort of thinking that I would be like thinking it's like, I don't know, too cheesy or pedestrian or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I think it really gave, and it also has that little story, that has
Mm.
some meaning to the homeowner.
I think these things are
So
really important. Like, this, as you say, you could go, oh, it's too cheesy, it's too whatever, but it's a part of the story of the house and
yeah,
it catches your attention and, it mentally journeys you to it. It makes you
right.
ask the question, it holds your interest. And that, I mean, what the studies are showing these days is that that creates a level of joy and a level of intrigue in a building, which is making it's much healthier for the people who are observing the building. The studies that like Thomas Heatherwick and
I was
those
just
guys are
thinking of
doing,
him. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
humanize,
Human factor.
yeah, it's a very important thing. Now, I remember this house so much because one day I was in Austin and Hugh and I had said, "Hey, let's grab coffee." And so
Ah,
we were
uh-huh.
doing
Yes.
that, and I think I drove, no, I walked part of the way, I think, or you walked. I can't remember, but
Yeah,
I
probably.
think we both walked and met. And
Yeah, yeah. Cafe
and
Medici.
you said to yeah, and you said to me, round the corner here, there's a house that I did. And I'm like, cool, let's go and have a look. And I remember standing outside of this, and to this day, the dormer windows on it have been something that stuck in my mind so much as a beautiful modern way to treat something that was in a fairly traditional styled home. So tell us the
Yeah.
story of this house.
Well, this is a 1935 Greek Revival cottage, and there are some people who had seen a past project, and they were living in a house that we designed, but they bought from the second owner. So I never worked with them, right? And they knew of us and they knew our work. And they said, we want to find an old house and do a project. And here's kind of the basic location of town. And here's, different things. And so I was driving to work one day and a lot of traffic. And so I just took a little shortcut. I took a cut through the neighborhood and I saw this house. And I was like, that looks so nice. This morning sun was hitting it. And I looked inside a for sale sign. It's like, whoa. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, we already have a house. We don't,
Yeah, we
my
don't
wife and
need
I, we
another
don't,
one.
don't need a house. But it just struck me. It's almost like, the ray of light was hitting it like this epiphany. It's like, wait, there's someone who's looking for a project. And so I reached out to the homeowners, my client, and said, "Hey, here's this house. I think it's a pretty cool house, and it needs a lot of work, but they wanted one that was a big project. They wanted to kind of do that." And so, 3 weeks later, it was their house, and so forth.
No.
And so, major, major rebuild. The porch was kept. Those two little side pieces were more or less like that roof, the gray metal roof with those dormers. That roof is actually 3 feet or 3.5 feet higher than the roof used to be. So they tore off the roof and then they kind of built it up higher so they could have a second floor. There wasn't just a low attic with where you'd bump your head, right?
Hmm.
And then, there's other parts of the home where in the back it's much more modern. So again, that kind of contrast between the old traditional and then the kind of more contemporary.
Yeah.
The
It's
yeah.
well, it still holds all its a charm of the original old house. That's the other thing. Like it's still a charming looking property. It, yeah, I think it's fabulous. A fabulous addition, really, more than reno, isn't it? Well, reno and addition.
Yeah, it's also rebuilding the house
Yeah.
and knowing we could have a lot of the things we added or rebuilt could have looked more modern, but we thought there's a kind of balance, like this
Hmm.
ratio of what you want to have. And if it's overpowered by something, then you don't have that little pop of the accent.
Hmm.
Like the dormers could have been traditional, but the homeowner really said, no, I want them to be like a little bit more contrasting in the front. The front of the house and the porch, that's enough tradition for me. And so
Yeah.
she really had a voice in kind of helping
Whoa.
lead it. And then you see,
Sorry, I don't
yeah,
know what happened then. Go back, go back. There, sorry. And
okay.
that's
Yeah,
not
so this
inside
is
it, is it?
Yeah, so that's inside
That's yeah.
the house we are just looking at. You see the green door
Yep.
on the far
Oh yeah,
left.
right. On far left, there's the
And
front
so
door.
the chimney was kept and stripped the brick off of it or stripped the paint and also sheetrock because most back in the day you wouldn't expose the brick. It was just the building material, but we thought it'd be nice to kind of keep that chimney and it still works as a fireplace, but as an artifact. And then everything you see from the right of the chimney, like this whole space, this is all a new addition. So again, the big tall space, you get a lot of natural light. And then
Yep.
the kitchen is at the far end. And
Yep. And opens out into
yeah.
the backyard.
There it opens
On
to the
the
side yard and
side
very
yard, yeah.
small. Yeah, it has a big, on the other side of the property, it does have a fairly large, but it's just a little patio.
Uh-huh. Um, that's not the same house.
Yeah, and these are all the same. And so this is
Yeah.
the kitchen where in the previous picture you saw the woman standing. And so the kitchen, and again, this is testament to the client who has a great eye for things. And after the tour, so many people said, "Who's interior designer? Who's interior designer?" I said, "Kim,
Oh,
you should
do
start
this.
a business. I mean, you have beautiful taste in the wallpaper and just everything." She had her art, just really, really great eye for things. And she said, "No." She says, "Oh, I don't want to be there. Like, are people even going to like the house?" And she's so anxious about it because she really cared about the interior. So she was really, wanting not to be judged by it.
Yeah.
And I said, "They love it." And, you know, she said, "I wouldn't want to be hired by someone. I'd only want to do what I want." And so she knew that she would have difficulty in kind of shifting gears. Now, having said that, I think with her talent,
Hmm.
she could find enough people who would want what she likes
Hmm.
and would give her that freedom. But nonetheless, just really giving a lot of credit to the homeowner and how the house reflects, their
Yeah.
personalities.
I think that's actually another really interesting point. And, showing these 15 homes that we're showing here is you, you don't have a set style. You work with what it is and where it is and the people that are going to live in it, rather than, being able to go down the street and go, oh, there's Hugh's house, there's Hugh's house, there's Hugh's house. Like some architects have a very set style. You see their place and you go, yep, that's one of theirs, that's one of theirs. It's a
Yeah,
signature. And one of the things that I love is how eclectic you do that, how eclectically you approach it, because each one is an individual and each one is truly custom to the people that it's going to be. And with her as d doing the interior design on her own home versus doing it on somebody else's, it would be very easy to get stuck into a signature,
right.
which she again is probably more like you, where she goes, I want to do this one this way because this is the story that speaks to me from it. And the client, I suppose, to some degree just gets in the way when that's the
Yeah.
case. So this next house here, I remember this house very, very clearly.
Yeah, this
Um,
is, I think, the first year maybe where we met, Adrian.
I think it is, yeah. What year was
Yeah, so
this?
this house, yeah, so this is in, I think, 2015,
I think so.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Obviously haven't had a house on the tour every year,
Hmm.
but there were some years where there was one after the other. And this house, you can see through where the stone wall is. That was the side wall of the house, and we did an addition. And the client in this particular portion of the home, beautiful old house and wonderful client. And they said, "Well, what if we could extend a porch off of this room right here?" I said, "Well, if you extend a porch, then when you're in the room, it's going to kind of feel closed off because the porch is going to be blocking your view. And there's a nice view of the state capital of Texas and
Mm.
downtown." But so you already have a beautiful large porch. We call it a veranda, there, and why don't we make this room where it can really open up and also feel like you're on a porch when you're inside rather than walking out to another porch? And that was the motivation here. And also some Victorian greenhouses or like conservatories
Hmm.
where they have all the different mechanical flaps and things and gears. And so the windows that you see there to the left, they were, we designed them, but we worked with Drop House is a fabricator here in town. And they've done stuff now all over the country. They do a lot of things now for Tom Kundig's, Olson
Yeah, in
Kundig and
fact,
different places.
Drophouse have a house on the tour this year.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
yeah,
It-
Matt and Christian are the
yeah.
Drop House, business partners and working with them on another project currently. So very excited about this, something in the future. But again, color, this is one where the homeowner said, we had someone in our office working back in the day, on this project as an interior designer, sort of in-house. And so she and I really looked and liked this color. And yeah, we didn't always share the same opinion, this employee of mine, but the client said, both you and Trisha like this color. And I thought, you know what? If you both like it, I wasn't sure about it. I actually
I
kind
was
of didn't
going to
like it, but
look
I
to
figured
see.
I
No, there
figured
was another
be a
one.
professional and trust and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here you see this is the front of the house,
Yeah.
which
I'll
just to
go
give you the
back to that.
context.
Yeah, this is out the back. This is the front of the house. Oh, sorry, it's done it
Yeah, there.
again. Um, yeah,
And
my end it skipped through 100 photos. There we go.
yeah, I'm seeing it's yeah. So and here you can see it's really small, probably on whoever's screen, but
Yeah.
that's the front, and then the next. There's not a lot to say about the front. We rebuilt the staircase, and but
Well,
we didn't
wasn't
want to
it?
make.
I mean, it very much sat with the street. That was one of the things, wasn't it? It was very much of the street.
Yeah,
Mm.
and then here you can see the back. This
Yeah.
is the west face, and we didn't have a view, and it's facing west, which you don't want to do in Texas. So we really try to keep it a very discreet, very simple object. And then you see that window. There's a glass connecting piece that reveal between the block of the stucco and then the stone house.
Hmm.
And then then you can kind of see how the so those windows that operate we're looking at, they're on the other side of this solid wall because they're looking east, they're looking towards the downtown view.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it so clearly, especially because of that, veranda, as you called it, or it's like a closed-in porch. And
Yeah.
it was really beautiful. Like, and then having the traditional and then the play on the traditional, but sort of modernized, with the big levers to open the windows and stuff. It inspired a project that I did here where I did
Oh, okay.
big mechanical louvers or windows like that to open up. They were electrified because they were way bigger. But yeah, it was a house that I was working on here, and we closed in a big porch to do exactly that, and it turned into his office, which was really fun. But that piece that you'd done inspired me to do it the way that I did it in this other home.
Yeah. So this house was a 19 late 60s home, a wonderful homeowner, where they all are, and
Hmm.
so she's from Texas originally, and then she had lived in Hollywood. She was involved in, in sort of the industry, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
and but really brought, in fact, she now has an interior design practice
Oh, really?
and, really has a good eye to the whole kind of character. And it was a major renovation addition. We actually ended up tearing off the roof that's above this room. But when we rebuilt it, we had the option of raising the ceiling. So no, we like that vibe of the kind of the low ceiling, very kind of mod. But then let's have the articulation of the trusses being exposed and then the higher ceiling over the piano.
Yeah.
And again, rather than having one big, tall boring space.
Hmm.
We think it's much more dynamic to work with the ceiling planes and how the light comes in and really kind of sets those moods, in the lower kind of more intimate spaces and then the taller,
Yeah.
spaces. Yeah, and the what we liked in this project is even though we had the option of kind of at one point she said we could it's probably less expensive to just build a whole new house, but none of us wanted that because we liked that kind of like very neutral, almost nondescript character of the house from the street. Again, like you might imagine if you spend any time in Los Angeles or places where like
Yeah.
Mulholland Drive and different
Yeah.
parts, you drive by and the house, it could be an amazing house on the inside, but
Yeah.
from the street, it looks boring. It looks plain, very neutral. And that was kind of what this house was. And that was kind of the vibe that she wanted. So
That's kind of
that's
fun
the
though,
story
isn't
here.
it? Isn't that kind of fun?
And then you see in the back, I
Yeah.
think the next image,
Yeah, this one.
yeah, no, she had a real kind of, and then, here we're looking at where you have the higher ceiling. And then we extended into this big tall screen porch, 11-foot ceiling. Again, drop house worked on this one, the steel fabricators.
Yeah, right.
And then her primary suite is what is straight ahead there.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's
Again,
fabulous.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that when I look at these projects, having that level of craft and detail really has been elevated in Austin over the years. Like the very first one on Aqua, we like a lot of things about it, but the basic detailing, the construction was just more of the day, just
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
straightforward.
As you said with Drophouse, they have certainly given Austin, again, another benchmark to elevate so high into what they do and how they've done it with I mean, they're both architects as well, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, and
And
they get inspired to do
yeah,
that kind of level of, cool detail, not only cool details, but appropriate ones, but also ones that really feel finely crafted. And you look at it, and even
yeah,
the one construction detail can kind of bring joy to. in the winter.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
so this one was
Richard Lane.
yeah, so this is another one that's sort of a site-specific kind of design. In one of the next images, you'll see it's on a sloped site, and rather than putting the garage and the driveway in the front, we put it underneath and made a three-story house. And so that again, that took the driveway and everything away from the overall footprint and let it be for outdoor space. And when we did that, that meant that the front door that you see here,
Yeah.
you walk past the backyard. The backyard is just on the left-hand side of that brick wall. And so that's kind of a very interesting site diagram, right? But it once we came up with that, it really everything kind of clicked and flowed, tucking away the stuff that doesn't need to dominate,
Yeah.
and overpower the rest. And so then it also gives you that whole sequence of, you walk in and as you move through the home, it kind of unfolds itself. Again, you know, you mentioned, Adrian, that we're eclectic in the style of a lot of the houses,
Mm.
but the whole sense of moving through the unfolding, the experiences, I think it's almost like you're having a fine meal with one course after the other, or a movie or a piece of music,
Yeah.
where you don't see it all at once, it kind of builds up, and
It
that's what we
re
try to do.
it reveals itself. I love that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like here you see that whole kind of thing where the house isn't telling you too much here. You've got to come
yeah.
into it to see the
And this is
next
the
level.
busier street side. It's on a corner, and so the front door is on the opposite side, and this is where we thought, okay, well, if we're going to have like the garage down low and have a three-story house, it's almost going to feel like the garage is meant to be sort of this
Hmm.
excavated area. And
Hmm.
it's as if you were to cover away the land and you had a two-story brick house that you then just kind of sliced the land away and you kind of had the subterranean level exposed was one of the stories we
Yeah.
didn't tell the client so much, but really we didn't want it to be like this three-story brick wall. And
Yeah.
so we thought, having that little steel lintel that holds to the brick is pretty easy. And then the overhang of the brick over the garage door also helps to protect it, being
Sure.
recessed back.
Yeah. Weatherproofs it. It's interesting. I remember this house as well, really well. It's always I find it always fascinating, when you go into a home, and I can remember how this house felt so much so, like the one
Oh,
previously,
yeah. Oh,
how
thank you.
much how it
Yeah.
felt, and especially like in this piece here with the millwork and stuff as well that you had, and just going, oh yeah, right. It was. I remembered, like the transition from the previous year or years when the other one in 95, 15 to this one, I think was this 16 or was it like 17? I can't remember.
Yes. I'm not sure which of those two
Yeah,
years,
it was
Adrian,
one
but
of those. Yeah, and I
yeah.
remember, same you being the same architect, but a different story with this house. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I really liked it. This is obviously in that living room that was really kind of like cozy. It had a beautiful feel of like escape, I think, was what how I felt. And again, the interior design with the color was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Susie Page did the interiors.
Okay. Um, and
Okay. Well, this,
now we're at the farm.
if you were taping this, I'm at home, I'm not in my office,
Yeah.
and I am in that building right behind the goats and the pig. So this is my house. This is a 1939 house that was designed. The couple who got married, he was born in 1878 and he was 65 and he got remarried, second marriage, and she was 40 and they didn't think they could have any kids. They've been married for a year or two and then decided to build a house. And it turned out that they had ultimately two children, but
Right.
it is a house that was designed by the architecture firm called Page, Sutherland and Page, which is now Page.
Mm.
And they have
Mm.
offices in London. They have offices all over the world. And they're still a very, very active Austin firm, probably the top, institutional commercial practice here in town. But back in the day, they designed houses. And so it's interesting, that they were the architects. But we renovated it. And so what used to be the garage is that kind of wing that you see again behind, the animals. And there's a breezeway, which you'll see in another picture, that we turned into a porch. And then there's a cupola that's on the roof there, and that
Mm.
is a loft for one of our son's bedrooms.
Did that did that skip two photos then? No, it
I
didn't.
don't, I
No,
think
it
this is the
didn't.
next one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yep.
Yeah. And so one of the things that if you design, it's a challenge, is an understatement to do your own project because you can do anything you want. And sometimes I like again having that balance and those kind of constraints from another client
Yep.
and so forth. And so, but at the same time, I think that it's you kind of have the responsibility to try something, be your own guinea pig, to push the
Hmm.
limits, to experiment.
Hmm.
Now, these are these big, tall custom doors that we made, and the use of color. There's our dog. He is
Yep.
still around. He's 17 and a half years old
Oh
now.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
The-
using it to really explore. It's very like a collage, like a lot of our work, but here it's even more so where you're trying different materials, different details
yeah.
and so forth.
I think that's a great thing, like because it is that exploration, especially when it's a renovation, when it's a continued renovation and additions. This
Yeah.
is your back
Yeah,
outdoor
and so this
dining
is
area.
if you're sitting at one of those chairs on the left side of the table, you can look and see those yellow doors. So this used to be the driveway used to kind of go through what they call in Texas the dog trot or the breezeway
Uh-huh.
between the two pieces. And we didn't really need the garage. And so that became, the two bedrooms for our sons and a laundry room and so forth. But then creating what used to just be that kind of drive through the breezeway became the outdoor, social area. And that's really where, like a lot of old houses, it had a lot of relatively small, rooms.
Hmm.
They were sort of relatively separate from the others, right?
Yeah.
And we really wanted one larger space. And back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, a lot of the houses didn't have big outdoor porches. Obviously the older ones did, but we really wanted a big outdoor entertaining area. And so it's really great. I mean, I like this photograph. I like how it all looks.
Yeah.
But what I really like is when we've had, New Year's Eve parties and all these different events and dinners, and it's really great. We have even an outdoor fire pit that you can see far off there. But no, this is
Everything
this house I know
flows,
very well.
everything flows out into it. So this
Yeah.
one is
And
River
so
Ranch.
yeah, so this is on a property that's about 10 acres. So I call it a ranch. It's not really a Texas definition
H-
of ranch,
How
but
far out of
it's in a
Austin
sub.
is it? Yeah, how far out
This is
of Austin?
about 40 minutes outside of
Okay.
town.
Yeah.
And so it's just a typical, subdivision street with different houses that look very typical suburban homes. But this particular homeowner is, again, I keep talking about these clients. And so Gina had approached us and seen some of the work, and she was much more kind of the active client, and he was just whatever makes you happy, honey,
Yeah.
and so forth. And so she really wanted something that was, she loves gardening, she loves outdoor, but she wanted it to be, again, they're empty nesters. And they said, we only want our bedroom, which is the far right, to be part of the main house. And
Hmm.
then for our other bedrooms, for our children or our friends when they come to visit, they will be in a separate building, but connected by that porch. And so it's interesting is I look at this picture and then my own house is, that whole sense of having a compound where you go outdoors to get to something. And I look
Yeah.
back, Adrian, and I never realized how much of a theme for 30 years. That very first house,
Yeah.
again, you
Same
had that
thing.
porch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. But no, but I think that especially this picture, but I think that what's interesting is I was saying she came to me and she said, I said, well, what would you like your house to be like? She said, out of Africa.
Oh,
And
wow.
she's referring to the movie from the
Hmm.
1980s,
Hmm.
And I think I knew what she meant. I could have said, well, we're not in Africa, but
Yeah.
I knew what she meant, like this colonial where you take something that is traditional, but then you get big porches and a certain kind of simple form. And I said, well, that's great. But in Texas, we want it to kind of feel, how can it feel like Texas? And I said, have you ever been out to Fort Davis, which is this
Oh, yeah.
old
Yep.
1880s,
Yep.
place near Marfa, Texas?
Hmm.
And the husband said, that's my favorite place. And he'd been quiet the whole time. Then I mentioned, like, well, what is Cibolo Creek? Is this another, place out there that has these big porches? And he goes, that's where I proposed to Gina. And so I'm just giving these random references, right? But how do you include a client to get excited? And because everyone cares, but sometimes, especially not only the men, but I think that a lot of times like, oh, I'm not creative. I don't,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, they're not used to it, or they don't. If you're a very successful person in charge of stuff and you're not in your arena and your comfort zone, you don't
You
how
often
to
step
talk
back.
design, how to talk
Yep.
architecture, not look like you're,
Yeah.
you know, knowledgeable. But no, it's really nice how that one communication of places that I've been that I love, we found this common ground, and so it ended up really where is a very fortunate collaboration with the homeowners.
And what a beautiful place. Like what a, yeah, really
Yeah,
cool. And to think that it's got, somewhat standard houses around it. Is this the front
yeah,
entry?
and here's the front, yeah, and again keeping that kind of low, long, kind of
Mm-hmm.
simple shape, and the little buildings that are kind of quote unquote connected by those other pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And she
fabulous.
did a wonderful job with the landscape.
I was about to say the landscaping's really lovely. The way those hedge little pieces r drop down towards the door, and
Yeah.
also the striped awning piece over the door, just and the path with the kink in it. It takes you on a journey. It feels very much in the country. This is inside.
That is. And again, just that, the use of texture and,
Yeah.
the palette of the warmth. You have a concrete floor, but then you have the brick and the plaster wall. It
Hmm.
really kind of give it a nice where it's not modern by any means, but it's not, there's no crown molding and
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's a very different kind of character and really fits who they are and their kind of personalities.
Mm. Yeah. It feels very much that you could sit and relax and be at home in the countryside.
Yeah. Well, here's another porch, and this
Yeah.
porch it's a Teresa Avenue project, and we collaborated a former summer student intern when he was in grad school. He graduated, went to work for a larger firm to work on bigger multifamily projects. And then a few years later, he came to us and said, oh, with his wife, he said, hey, we want you to be our architect. It's like, well, you're an architect.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
licensed at that point. And he said, well, you know what? He's really interested in the passive house technology. And that was he's really done a wonderful job of, doing a few others. So this is the first passive house in this whole region of America.
oh, really?
And what they liked that house in Palma Plaza, the one with the glass dormers and
Huh?
the green door.
Hmm.
And they really liked it and so forth. So, okay, well, you can be our design architect, and then we can do all the drawings and technical stuff. And so I really admire that he had I guess the confidence to say, like, this is what I'm good at. And you know what? I think you're going to be a better designer for us. And not to let an ego, like,
Yes.
I'm not sure if I could do that. Like, when somebody wants to kind of feel that they're good at everything,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with being ambitious, but I think it was a really great thing because his skill set and his experience, in the areas that he is focused on was deeper than ours, especially at the time. And so again, have that balance between what he brought to the team and what we brought to it. Um, and so the story is that they kept the porch and a little bit of the front of the house. And then the next image that
Let's
you'll
find it.
see is the back. And again, that theme of the more modern,
Yeah.
yeah.
S-
So big screen porch
Uh-huh.
and how that house, you know, it's off of an alley, but really just it has a view of downtown and the hillside and different factors about it. But again, that kind of clean, simple, space, very neutral. So it's not competing with the historic,
Hmm.
character of the front.
Hmm.
It's not trying to mimic it.
Yeah. It's just being its own thing. Do you know that thing of, working with another, design architect and, using your strengths like that? I think it's the most fascinating journey. Like I've got a couple of projects where I have an architect of record, and whilst I'm doing the design part of the job, they're doing, the functionality part of the job.
Yeah.
But they're on site more than I was. They're in the location. I'm not. And
Hmm.
the collaborative thinking that happens where they're not in control of the design as much, but they're bringing the next level of it to the place because they know the place. They know the place so well. And I find that really fabulous. Like it's a real joy to work with them and get that piece out of it. And when they get enthused about something, it makes it even more enthusiastic for yourself when you're doing it. It's
Yeah,
those
no,
parts.
totally.
Yeah, it's fun. Like I was talking the other day with somebody and one of these guys, and I said, yeah, I'm looking at this or this, and he's like, that's the one. That's the one. Seriously, that's the one you've got to use out of these two things. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm up for that. Let's see
Yeah.
what the client's got to say. This is inside the house looking out over towards
Yeah.
downtown, is it? Yeah.
And again, yeah, there's actually in the last 3, 4 years since this house was done, this is on the tour in, I guess, 3 years ago. Yeah. So the my house and the River Ranch project were unfortunately just they were during COVID, so were not they were just virtual tours.
Virtual tours.
But this one was the first year back in real life, and so but even since this house was on the tour, downtown has had a lot more tall buildings, but behind those trees, and again the exposure of the picture you don't quite see them, but again opening up, finding kind of natural flow from the front of the traditional home towards the
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. This house here, Lake Austin.
Yeah, so this one was, part of the tour. Every year they have a VIP party. You
Hmm.
pay more for the ticket and whatnot, and the architects and different, sponsors, you get to enjoy it. And so this is one where the homeowner is very gracious and said, I'll do that, but
Wow.
that's where, so if someone is watching this or happens to see it, is that and says, I go on the tour every year, but I never saw this one. Well, this is where they had the tour party. And so this is one where, again, the site, there is, a beautiful, beautiful view of the Lake Austin, a lagoon there. And she is an art collector, real big sponsor here in Austin of the art world and the art, art scene. In fact, all of her art are pieces by female artists, which I think is very interesting. And so this is how do you open it up, and so the front is very private, very kind of a little bit of a cool aura to it, the white, very simple forms. But
I'll
then the
go back to
back,
that. Yeah.
but it is a lake house, yeah, you see there, but
Yeah.
also the view through it, as you kind of walk in, even though it's fairly
It,
non-flashy or whatever, you get to kind of look through, but the view is kind of very choreographed, much like the Valburn house. You don't see it right away. You kind of, it's at a diagonal.
hmm
But the porch was really for me the heart of the house, and just having it be where these big sliding doors, open up and see
Yeah.
this is from the kitchen. So if you're in the kitchen, you open the doors, and I was telling them that they weren't sure whether they needed or wanted a screen porch because they thought of them as being kind of too casual and like a camp or something. And I said, no, your porch will be really nice, and it'll feel like it's a room inside the house. If you have nice finishes and nice furniture.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is when these doors are open, the kitchen, rather than the porch feeling like a room in the house, the kitchen now feels like you're on the porch. So it's kind of like
That's,
the porch influenced the interior feel as an opposite. When I was trying to kind of
I
lobby
was
and sort of
looking to
share
see if
why
there
they
was
should have a
another one
porch.
there. That's so cool. Yeah, because then
Yeah.
that's
And then
really
this one,
blended the space, hasn't it?
yeah. And
And then
it's
this
really
next
all
one.
about just yeah, the next one is, you know, some of the rooms are much more kind of open, more modern, but then we like having a variety of spaces. And so this room is kind of the more formal living, kind of lounge space.
Mm,
And worked with Ann Tucker, Studio A, like the same firm that we worked with on the Valburn house that will be on the tour
hmm
this year. And really having that kind of warm, kind of cozy, clubby feel. It's a high ceiling, but really making it feel like it's more this could be some lounge at a nice London hotel or something.
It
Um,
certainly got that clubby hotel kind of feel, but very intimate feeling, even though the high ceiling, because of the blue, I suppose, bringing it all down.
yeah,
And the use of color is fabulous, like the
yeah,
brass
it's
and the,
very
yeah,
nice, nice intimate space.
yeah.
So yes, that was the VIP tour or house a couple of years ago. And so
Then
this is
we're gonna,
we're now up to the present. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll skip through these ones pretty quick because
Yes.
there is a whole Hugh's on the we're releasing a series for the Austin tour, and he will explain this house in great detail then.
Yeah.
And these
More
photos,
than you'll ever need to hear, right?
yeah, well, we don't want to reveal the secrets in both places.
I know.
And
Yeah.
this Rob took these photographs here, Rob Gomez, and again, really fabulous home. And I want to skip through them beautifully, but pulling out some of the detailing, like the bricklaying in here and the way the entrance brings you in, and then the way that it sits up. And again, this was a really steep site, correct?
It was. It's interesting seeing the projects because when you get a distance from the work, which is good over the
Hmm.
years, and a lot of them do look very different, but it's allowed me, Adrian, so thank you for even thinking of this whole podcast, but it's allowed me to see the common themes, like how many projects we've done on sloped sites, how many
Yeah.
projects we've done where it's all kind of like revealing the view, not
Hmm.
immediately, but it's like a sequential thing. And again, independent of what it looks like, or independent of what is that, the je ne sais quoi you're
Yeah.
saying, but what is the character about each house that is uniquely influenced by the people who are living there, even
And
though they look different, but where are the commonalities and where are the unique aspects of each job? So it's been fun. It's been fun to see them
it
all
has,
together.
like to go through like this and go, okay, so I could go back now through all these photos and go, oh, yes, this arched window, in this case it's arched, but this simple gable form, this piece of it, and then the way you floated it over the room below, you floated the
Hmm.
weight above it, just things like that. And I can go back through those photos that we've just been through and go, oh, I can see this feel again. You take this line, and we talked about that one where we had a big brick two-story facade and the garage underneath, and it stops and it cuts it off at ground level. Again, this sequencing here where you've got the two solid blocks and then you've created the entryway through it. It's funny when I said to you, you've got this eclectic nature, not necessarily a hard signature, and yet there are these same sensibilities that keep appearing in how you produce architecture. It, I think being able to go through and do 15 houses over this time has been a real treat.
Yeah,
This is,
no, I think that, and
there you go.
hopefully people will watch this even after this has been on the tour. But for people who do see this prior to the tour,
Yeah,
you know, come to Austin if you don't live in Austin, and yeah, long flight if any of your neighbors are watching,
yeah.
from Australia. But no, I think that it is something that we really enjoy being part of, and it's such a community event. And especially when you do residential architecture, also it means hopefully quite a bit to the clients, to the homeowners, but being able to share something with the broader public, when you
Mm,
put so much work and so much
mm,
effort and passion into a project, along with the whole team of builders and designers and everyone
mm.
involved and of course the clients, is that it's nice to be able to share it with a bigger group of people, you know.
I think so as well. I think that that's a really important part about it. And like you having a body of work like that, like a lot of architects could show a whole body of work, but these were all have been on the tour. These have all been open to the public. These have all been at different times. There'll be people who watch this podcast that have been in Austin. They'll be counting off. Oh yeah, I went to that one, that one, that one, that one,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
was doing that as I was, going through it, and then seeing. I wonder if they see the common thread pieces that we're noticing and they're built into your structural
Yeah,
thinking.
some people, I've met different people over the years that they talk about, like sometimes they say, "Oh, I love that house with the glass dormers," or "I love that wallpaper," or "I love that,"
Yeah,
the more cosmetic things, right? Which matter, but someone I met about a year ago said, "Oh, I remember seeing a house of yours. It was on the tour, I think, but it was for sale in that open house, a real estate open house. And what I really like, and I thought they were going to mention like some material detail. They said it was like a sense of surprise. I kept walking through and wanting to see what's next and how it revealed
yeah.
itself. And she may even use a choreography, not an architect, not a designer, but I thought that's kind of cool. Is it,
Yeah.
not that everyone, I would hate for everybody to interpret all of projects, the same way. It's just like
Mm,
if you were to go see a movie or something, and if everyone had the same reaction, like, oh, this is what it was about.
yes.
I think
Yeah.
it's much more interesting when everyone brings who they are. They bring their background, their emotional makeup, and they interpret something in a very different way. And you learn more about seeing it through their eyes.
I think
And
so.
and I think
Yeah.
that's really wonderful. So to what extent, sometimes people do notice and comment on the things that are very subtle, that are very conceptual.
Mm.
And and sure, I like hearing that, but also I like it when someone looks at it and thinks, and they see it in a way that I never thought about,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
They
that means
discover
that
something
it,
that
it
you
means
didn't.
something, it means
Yeah.
something to them and to who they are and whatnot. So I think that again, it's been, very interesting, very fun to see this, all sequentially,
Yeah.
and it took me a while. Like when we first talked about it, I said, well, Adrian, I have 13 houses. This will be our 13th house this year. And it turns out there's
15.
15. You kind of forget about a few, over the years. But yeah, seeing them all grouped together, has been very enjoyable.
Yeah,
And
I think people get to
yeah, thank
really
you.
enjoy that. And I'd love people to, give us their comments on all those homes and what they've seen, especially like, not especially if you're an architect, but if you're an architect, I would love your comments back
Yeah.
on on those kind of pieces, oh, so I saw this from this and this from this. And if you've been on the tour before and you're watching this and you've been in multiple of those houses, please do contact us and let us know your thoughts from them because that's kind of fun as well.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to
Or of
hear
course, if
those
you've been on
things.
the tour, if you've not been on the, or if you want to have a house on the tour in 4 years from now, and you have
Start
a
the
piece of land,
conversation now. Yeah.
yeah, contact us then too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. The tour is in the end of October. Uh, we'll be
yes, sir.
posting
October 25th and 26th.
25th, 26th that weekend. If you're planning on going to Austin for that tour, if you're in Austin, by all means, go on the tour. Meet Hugh. You'll meet a bunch of other architects on the tour as well. There's some incredible homes. But beyond that, if you are out of state or even out of country, and you are an architectural lover, a design lover, this tour, hands down, is one of the best that is available anywhere in the world. I've been on many, many homes tours, and this is something really special. So make the most of getting to Austin. Enjoy the food, enjoy the music, enjoy the
Yeah, it's a
sensibilities of
fun.
Austin. It's a
It's a
great town.
I'm biased, but I love living in Austin,
Yeah.
and I do find that you know not only the houses on the tour, but just come and enjoy everything that
Austin.
Austin has to offer.
Austin has so much that's so cool. Yeah. Hugh, thanks so
Yeah.
much, man. Look forward to seeing you.
Okay.
Okay,
All
buddy.
right. Adios,
Take
mate.
cheers,
Thank
man.
you.
Bye. Thank you for tuning into our conversation. I hope it left you both informed and inspired. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And please don't hesitate to share your design thoughts with me. It's always a joy to hear from you. If you're like me and crave a deeper dive into design thinking, coupled with a love for travel and adventure, consider one of my architectural adventures. Join me and some of my wonderful design friends and embark on a journey of a lifetime. Apply for an unforgettable design experience at adrianramsey.com. With our clients spanning the globe, I firmly believe behind every great project are great people. If you're a great person and seeking to turn your dream into a reality, I'd be honored to design your home with you. Why not join the ranks of our exceptional clients and let's make your heart sing? Reach out to me at studio@ardesignhouse.com. That's studio@ardesignhouse.com, and let's get a conversation going and make your heart sing.